Good. All right. Good evening, folks. We're going to get started. Welcome to day number, I believe 4, but day 1 of our warrant review. And so we look forward to having I think, good community conversation. I'm going to turn it over to the town manager, and I think for the benefit of the audience, if we could just give folks a sense of what we're covering today. We had a couple of questions. People want to show what's being covered when. And so, town manager, there we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The warrant that, if you can look on the screen, you can see the schedule that we've been following really since the fall with the budget process. The select board reviewed the warrant in the first week of April, and we would be following a similar schedule for the finance committee that we did for the select board. The first night of the review with the select board and similarly with the FinCom is going to focus on some of the bylaw recommendations and the citizens petitions. And the second night of the review will focus mostly on capital projects, reserves, and some of the more standard items that we see in our warrant year in and year out. So tonight the focus really will be on several proposed bylaw changes that came out of last year's annual town meeting having to do with historic preservation, a series of citizens petitions that were received by the town, a recommendation from the select board through 2 citizens regarding single-use styrofoam in restaurants and grocery stores, and the first item we'll talk about tonight is a recommendation from the select board that the town meeting consider reviewing the Town Meeting Act and the Town Manager Act for the first time in about 30 years. So without further ado, we'll dive right in. And the first item that we'll be discussing tonight is on page 4 in the warrant book, article number 7, and that is the establishment of a citizens committee to review the the Town Meeting Act of 1930 and the Town Manager Act of 1949. By way of very quick background, both of these documents, which essentially form the bedrock for our governance locally in Danvers, were our special acts of the Mass Legislature. The Special Town Meeting Act was adopted in 1930 and has been amended, I believe, 6 times since then, most recently in 1973. The Town Manager Act was adopted in 1949 and has been amended twice, most recently in the mid-1990s. The recommendation that the Select Board supported unanimously mirrors a process that was undertaken in the 1990s, whereby the town moderator would appoint a citizen committee with at least, I believe, 7 town meeting members. In 1995, then town moderator Peter Zook put together a committee with a representative from each of the 7 precincts and a chair also from town meeting. And the responsibility of that committee is to solicit input from boards, committees, town meeting members, the public, hold a series of public hearings, bring in outside experts where appropriate and helpful, and then return to town meeting with recommendations, if any, on updates to the governing documents. Be happy to take any questions that you have about this article.
Ollie. Arthur?
No, I'm fine. This is to create a commission. Is that what you want to say?
This would mirror the process that the town undertook in the 1990s, and also I'm a little murky on the first date, but it was adopted in 1949. It was reviewed once in between 1949 and 1995, but most recently it was reviewed in 1995. So this committee would sort of take a look at both documents, top to bottom, solicit input, feedback, and then bring some recommendations back to town meeting.
Well, since we're at least 30 years, I don't have any questions. I'm all set.
Yeah, I mean, it's closer to 50 years for the Town Meeting Act portion of it, so that's been, not that there's really probably more nuts and bolts from the standpoint of day-to-day operational stuff, I think, that people are familiar with in the Town Manager Act, but I was sort of on the peripheries of the 1995 change, and I think that it's, we've said this over the last couple of years, as we've dealt with sometimes citizen petitions and other petitions, that oftentimes what's being asked through those petitions and through some of those actions, really is better handled within the confines of an overarching review and potential changes to the town charter. And so, since we've been asking for that really for the last 2 or 3 years, some of us, it would sort of be really disingenuous to now oppose that, and I don't. I think it's a real good opportunity to be able to look at it. I have confidence that the moderator will put together a working committee that will present all aspects and all opinion in regards to the very wide breadth of how the town operates. I mean, I personally find that the way that we operate works very well and has worked very well for the last 70-something years, 80-something years. And I don't see any need to make a lot of wholesale changes. But then again, I think it's important that we have all aspects of the community in that committee, and I believe that you'll put that there. So I really support that, this warrant article.
Thank you. Aaron?
I'm all set, thanks.
Ed?
A couple quick questions. Steve, so does the town moderator have the ability to appoint other people to the committee other than town meeting members?
I think that as written, that certainly that, what's going on with my microphone? I don't think there's anything in the language that would preclude that.
Okay.
I know that in the 1990s, then town moderators adopted an 8-member committee, all of whom were town meeting members. I'm
And
not sure that's anything.
then the other question I have is, the suggested revisions, are they presented as one warrant article, or is it a series of, because obviously the changes could be quite different from each other.
I believe that in the 90s they were presented as a series of articles. I don't know that each individual change was broken out, but I think where it made sense to group changes together, they were, but
Right.
I don't believe it was an omnibus article.
Okay. That's it for me.
Good. Questions from the audience? Yep.
Good evening, FinCom. Bill Bates, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 4. Could I just ask that maybe you consider an amendment to put it at 8 town meeting members, one from each precinct, and why that wouldn't help or?
So if I could, Mr. Chair, I don't think there's necessarily a problem, but except for the fact that for some reason the select board wanted to go, and it might have been this is what it was prior in the previous review, but it's a minimum of, and just from a legal standpoint, when the question is does it have to be, it's not, it certainly says a minimum of 7 town meeting members. So for example, the town moderator could conceivably appoint an 11-member committee, 8 of which are representative across the spectrum of town meeting members, and then 3 of which would be people from potentially 1 finance committee member, 1 member of the select board, although they're technically also members of the town meeting. So I think from that standpoint, in this particular situation, because there was some reason that the select board wanted to do it that way, me personally, I'm not interested in sort of delving into that because I think it provides the opportunity to do that anyways. So, rest of the board, but I don't think there's any real reason to change what's there with it because of the minimum language.
Thank you. So, yeah, I agree. I think it's covered. Minimum of 7, could include 8.
Okay, I can make the amendment on the floor. I mean, we have 8 precincts. There's no reason, other than maybe they were thinking, I didn't know if they wanted an odd number so that but I can't imagine that would be the case. But we have 8 precincts. I think it would be nice to have all 8 precincts represented by a town meeting member. Thank you.
I might say, I'm not sure that participation out of every precinct is even, and involvement in terms of the folks that are engaged. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, my one reaction I have is 144 or whatever the number is divided by 8. Now you're down below 20. I don't know that I'm excited about forcing that level of precision on appointments. And I'm not sure that, and I don't really think that a town geographically the size of Danvers for something like this, I don't really see how like somebody's interests in precinct 5 are really all that different than precinct 1 or precinct 8.
So I'm going to move to the next question with that being said. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Bill. Any other questions from the audience? Seeing none,
Move the article.
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Article passes. Next.
Give me 1 second. Oh, 870.
Are we on 8?
But that was a 7-0. Next is Article 8. This was proposed by the Select Board at the recommendation of 2 residents, Bob Gamer and Linda Leonard, who are here tonight. Linda and Bob did a considerable amount of outreach prior to approaching the Select Board on this topic. Ann Freitas in my office sent out mailers to more than 200 licensed establishments in town with a link to the website where the proposed bylaw existed and contact information. I believe she received 1 phone call and 1 email prior to the Select Board review. I know that we have several businesses in the audience tonight. And at a very high level, essentially this would prohibit the use of single-use styrofoam food containers for takeout or in grocery stores, in the deli section, the produce section, et cetera. But certainly, it would be appropriate to give the proponents of this an opportunity to address the finance committee.
Certainly. Is there interest in speaking? We'll hear a question. Just give your names for the committee so we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm Bob Gamer,
And I'm Linda Leonard.
and
We feel strongly that styrofoam is an ugly plastic. It persists in the environment. It doesn't break down. It is, when heated with food in it, it gives off toxic chemicals, and it just is not a good thing.
it's not biodegradable. Styrofoam out in the environment is going to last 500 years. So there were essentially 3 reasons. The environmental impact, health concerns, and the wildlife impact. If you're interested, I can go into some detail on each of these, but it's really a question of whether, a budgetary one, whether a few cents more or the health of everyone and the wildlife. And that summarizes our reasoning.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go with questions. I'm going to go Ted.
So one question I have is, you're banning all styrofoam products by all retail, not just food. So there's other products, I think, that contain styrofoam. Is your aim to, if I go to Dick's and buy a cooler with styrofoam inside it, that's used to keep something cool, is that banned?
No.
But if I read that, my read would be that anything with styrofoam is banned.
If I could interject, the language in the warrant booklet itself identifies food establishments as being subject to this. So it would be disposable food service containers from food establishments containing polystyrene. So clamshell, it wouldn't apply to
I gotcha.
Coolers, or
Cups
chest freezers, things like that.
and cups.
Okay.
Styrofoam cups would be covered, would be banned.
So for the next best alternative for the restaurants, what's the difference in cost?
And it was about a dime.
Yeah, it depends on what you're talking about. We had props, which we didn't bring tonight, but one of them was segmented and slightly lined, and one of them was open and not lined, And it depends on what you're putting into it. If you're putting, say, a Chinese dinner in, you want the segmented one where the food doesn't interact with one another. And honestly, I don't know what the cost of those are. I only know that Bob and I went around we spent July and August of last year going around and talking to the restaurateurs, talking to managers, talking to owners, and saying, you know, how much is this going to impact you? Is this going to be a problem? And most of the people said no. The ones who said yes, a lot of them said, yeah, but it's the right thing to do and we're happy to do it. If we have to charge a few more cents for a meal, we'll do that.
And I just want to give one, I told this to the select board. Went to a very popular restaurant in Danvers, and the manager who we spoke to said, well, his concern was that, you know, a biodegradable one would leak. So we said, try this one, we'll come back in a few days. We did. And his response was, we're not only going to get a biodegradable one, but we're going to get a more expensive one. So I think that's a clear sign of the willingness on the part of eateries to go by this.
And are there other towns in Massachusetts that have exacted? or
Yes,
enacted
Yeah.
I
similar-
have a list of 77 here. I can forward it to you if you like, or 76. So,
And Salem most recently had theirs enacted in October.
two adjacent communities, Salem and Marblehead, both have.
Marblehead did theirs in 2014.
Right.
And Steve, you said you've heard feedback from 2 businesses? 0?
I think the email and the phone call were asking questions about the meeting itself. So no.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Aaron?
Hi, just a few questions. So when you talk about how it'll only impact places that sell food, so Market Basket, they have a prepared food section. Would that be included? They do sell things in styrofoam.
I think,
Any retail stores like that have
Do they
prepared food?
do they pack it in their store?
They do. It's made there and it's packed there. So just to be equitable across all
Yes,
businesses,
that would
I think
count.
that you need to consider everything.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Just to be clear, it does cover that.
It does cover that? Okay, that's good. And then I think I just really want to see overall impact to the businesses. Restaurants are really trying to just keep their doors open and keep their costs down so people will keep coming in. So having a true understanding of what the overall impact would be, I think is very important for you guys to present. Otherwise, yeah, I support it. I think it's important to be environmentally conscious, but I think you need to have a case here about what the impact is.
I'm holding up the
Okay, but
survey.
it's not in here, right?
Forward this to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
I think that this will clear up.
Yeah, we
any
sent it to
concern
the
there.
select board.
What?
I asked
Yep.
Wayne to talk into the mic.
Oh, okay,
That was meant to interrupt you.
okay.
I can't.
Keep them under control.
All right, I think we
Okay,
got it.
thank you.
Mike?
So which communities in the surrounding area within, say, 2 or 3 touching us have applied this?
We know that Salem and Marblehead definitely have bans, and theirs are somewhat broader than ours. Ipswich had done something, are you looking for the list?
I didn't know we wrote it. Yeah, I can find it.
So, I can send you the wording of the two bands that I do know of in Danvers, in Salem and Marblehead.
Here we are. I can forward this list, if you'd like, there are 59. List is here, both sides.
I mean, as a general rule, and I don't disfavor some of this stuff that we're talking about here, but, and I appreciate the effort, and obviously I've had the opportunity to work with you folks on the electric side of it, and I really appreciate the efforts that you make in regards to that as well. But I'm not sure that I'm prepared at this point to vote in favor of something when, there's clearly information that is sort of necessary and it hasn't been provided to us before. And, to try to be consistent, because in terms of that, I think I've still got to think about this one.
Oh,
Sure. Well, I commend you for your work and your effort. I know you went through this a couple of years ago with a plastic bag
Yes, we did.
thing. And, we accepted it, moved on. And I think, by and large, it's been pretty well received in town. I'm talking about the plastic bag, except I will say this, just today, as a matter of fact, I went into a store. It was a quasi-grocery store, I guess. I won't mention the name, and I carried everything out in a plastic bag. And I was taken aback. Now, when I got home, I read that there was writing on the bag, and it said this was completely, what's the term, Bob, I'm looking for? Recyclable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it just didn't say that. It gave me a little bit of a history, which I was satisfied with, but I'm not into this. I don't know. So I'm just wondering whether people are finding a way to cut the corner. As far as I was concerned, it's plastic. All right, but you can go back and use it again, I guess, bring it back. I'm in favor of this. I think one of the problem is you can't get to the big box places that drive something up on your doorstep and leave a frozen turkey, and now you try to get rid of that. Okay, you can't do it.
Bob and I have addressed that.
Okay, I know that's a bigger problem for us, but I think this is pretty easy myself.
Yeah.
I don't see any problem if you go to a restaurant, you have dinner, you ask them to take it out, doggy bag, whatever you call it. I've gone to restaurants and they do give you biodegradable takeout boxes. There's no problem. There's no leakage. If you leave it in your car for 3 days, well, shame on you. But, get it home, get it in the refrigerator, you're all set. The only question, I think it's explained in the description. If you go to a grocery store, let's say, a Stop and Shop, Market Basket, Shaw's, whatever, you buy meat, and there's usually a styrofoam, it's usually sitting packaged, plastic on top, in a styrofoam container type. I don't think that's covered, no?
That'd be exempt.
Yeah, that'd be exempt. So you're basically talking about coffee cups and things like that. And all you have to do, if you're not in favor of it, just go out to Center Street, take a left turn to get either on 91, 95, or Route 1 North, and look on your right and left, and you'll be in favor of it. Believe me, because there's more junk out there that's probably half of it's styrofoam, so I have no problems with it, that's all.
thank you. Arthur?
In general, I don't either. My question is, did the places that are going to be affected by this, have we heard from them? Were they provided notice? Do they know what's going on? Have they shown up at anything? And how does that play out?
So the Board of Health provided us a spreadsheet with the 200-plus establishments in town who have food licenses that could theoretically use styrofoam. Not all of them do. And we sent postcards to each of those establishments, notifying them of the date of the Select Board review, tonight's meeting. We provided a link to the actual bylaw, and then offered to provide hard copies if anybody wanted them through the town manager's office, and we had no requests.
No response, and nobody at the selectmen's hearing either?
We had one business, but not affected by the ban, to my knowledge.
Okay,
And I think we have a second business owner tonight who potentially would be affected.
okay. All right, well, that's really what I wanted to know. I'm all set.
Thank you. Wally? I had two quick questions. One, timeline.
I think there's a date in here,
I looked again and
maybe January 1st, 2025 would be the effective date.
And potential fallback, similar to, I think, Arthur's question, similar to, I think, when plastic bags were rolled out. What should we anticipate if that was our example?
So we had very few, several fines were issued during that rollout, but very few relative to the number of establishments that offered the bags. The Board of Health was designated, and specifically the health director was designated as an enforcement agent here. Most of the information that came back to the town was either word of mouth, so somebody would report seeing it, we'd go out, have a conversation, give them a copy, remind them of the bylaw. So I would anticipate a similar rollout here. So we'd be heavy on the education, light on the penalties, unless it was a issue where multiple opportunities to correct were sort of ignored.
Thank you. So, questions from the audience?
Nova Salmon Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Just in regards to the cost that's going to be for the businesses, I will say that just for me personally, if I get takeout and they use styrofoam, I don't go back there. So that's also an impact that some of us might choose to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
D. Joko, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6, and member of the Board of Health. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but we did send a letter to the selectmen supporting this initiative. I'm rising today just to commend Linda and Bob for this. This is what citizen involvement looks like. They brought this to the Board of Health. We had a lot of reservation and a lot of questions. They went out, they did a lot of homework. They spoke to a lot of businesses around town and gathered the evidence that they presented back to the Board of Health to help us make an informed decision. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Bob White. I represent the Berry Tavern as general manager. Not going to get up here and speak against the environment or safety for sure. If it were passed, we would certainly go along, with that and support it. But it is an increase in cost, just as plastic bags. Plastic bags probably on a cost standpoint had a more significant impact because you have to go to paper bags and they're expensive and their prices have gone up maybe 100% since COVID. So that's not an easy thing to do. But again, from the styrofoam containers, we would have to buy more to maintain a reasonable price, stock more, take up more space on other types of containers. Styrofoam containers, are very stackable and don't present a problem relative to inventory and getting in supplies. And you get deliveries every week. But to keep the cost in line, because everything else has gone up, we would have to buy more, store more of them. But again, I'm not going to speak against the environment. I'm 100% in favor of supporting the environment and any kind of safety issues that they relate to. We are right now trying different types of non-styrofoam containers to see what fits, veal parmesan, with sauce and pasta, and get that into a container the same size as the styrofoam containers that we have today. But we haven't come to that. We haven't found that right product, but we would certainly comply and support the change. And by the way, we didn't get the postcard, and that's why we didn't respond.
Thank
It's
you.
going to come to our business, but as general manager, I'm supposed to get all the mail, but that's no sense.
Thank you. We'll take one more, and then we'll call the question. Bill.
I'm a little concerned. I followed this at the Board of Health, the selectmen. When last I heard about this, I thought grocery stores were exempt. In reading this, it certainly lists the grocery stores. The meat department concerns me incredibly. That's done on site at most supermarkets. They cut the meat and they put it in the styrofoam on site. So I don't think we're ready for this. This is probably better for a statewide ban, to give our businesses a chance to deal with it, and certainly not in its current form. I would not support this.
Thank you.
Could I just ask the town manager, it's a good question, but I'm reading the use regulations, and it says the following are exempt and not subject to the provisions of this bylaw: prepackaged meat and produce trays, egg cartons, and other foods. Would that cover, because I'm assuming I think I know what Bill's talking about. It's those styrofoam bottoms that they put on the.
Paul's question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm shaking.
Yeah.
My read of this would be that prepackaged food coming into the store off of a truck would be exempt. Food that was prepared in the store would not be
Right,
exempt.
it's discretionary, right.
Can I
Okay.
just close with just one
Yes,
comment?
final comment?
Yeah. To those still weighing decision on this, I'm going to read you something, and this is science speaking. Styrofoam is a severe environmental impact, severe. Health concerns. Styrofoam contains harmful chemicals, including styrene, which causes cancer. It can leach into food and beverages. Wildlife. Styrofoam is a significant threat to wildlife. These are factors you're going to have to consider in making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
Say one last thing, and that is that Bob and I, when we went before the select board, one of the selectmen said this would be better as a statewide ban, which I don't disagree with. But we enacted our plastic bag ban in 2018. It went into effect in 2019. The Commonwealth has yet to have a bag ban statewide. Until there's a sufficient push from the local towns and people, it's not going to happen. And we are a coastal town. We have a responsibility for taking care of the coast.
Thank you, Linda and Bob, both. Is there a motion from the committee?
Move the question.
Observations, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
There's a business owner that wanted to speak and hasn't been allowed to speak yet.
I didn't see a hand.
Well, you.
I just want to make a quick comment if I could.
So let me clarify something, right? In the course of conversation, when I scanned the audience, if I saw a hand, the last hand I saw, Mr. Bates, and I saw your hand, and it was after we had gone around and I hadn't seen a hand, you offered your hand, I offered it. I did not see another hand. If you want to be recognized, raise your hand high so I can see it, because I want to move discussion and discourse. I don't want to go around in circles, but you're welcome to have your comment.
Thank you. Kind of new at this here.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make a quick comment about styrofoam in general, which may not necessarily apply directly to this. My name is Dan Murphy. I own North Shore Pack and Ship, and we see a lot of packaging material that is styrofoam, and we have a informal recycling program at the store. So we take all kinds of different things back, and one of the notorious problem areas is styrofoam. Essentially, you buy packed furniture from Amazon or whatever, and you get these huge, crazy pieces. Just to put it out there, maybe the committee could consider in the future some sort of a program to recycle that sort of styrofoam, like a drop-off point or something, because people are pretty much at a loss of where to put that kind of stuff. And volume-wise, I would say it's significantly bigger than the takeout containers. Basically, your Omaha steak things of the world, styrofoam planks, all that kind of stuff. Most people don't know what to do with it. There are some not easily accessible recycling programs. There's a place in Charlestown that will take that stuff and densify it and reuse it, but most towns don't offer anything like that just based on economics. So something to consider in the future possibly. That's my comment.
Absolutely. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge you. Thank you for your courage in coming up. Hard to do it the first time. So tonight is my first time being chair, and then I have to deal with, certain comments from folks, jabbing me. So, but thank you very much. Again, for folks who are here, just raise your hand high. I'm doing my best, right? But if I didn't see you, just let me know. We want to make sure that folks who have testimony get it forward before we vote. but I also want to move the agenda as well, so just work with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We were coming back to a motion. I think I heard a motion.
Move the question.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'm going to call for those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One nay. Any abstention? There we go. It passes. Thank you all. Thank you all. Okay.
Next, I would invite Dan Gagnon up to the microphone. And I'll acknowledge Aaron Henry is in the audience. I'm looking to see if anybody else. At the last town meeting, in the context of the discussion on 42 Summer Street, the town meeting approved the creation of a study committee to take a broader look at historic preservation in town and across the bylaw, and to work with the goal of coming back to a future town meeting with some recommendations. And Dan is here tonight to represent those efforts that the committee undertook and the three distinct pieces that they brought back. And you'll find these on pages 22 and 23 of your book, of your warrants.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager, Mr. Chairman. So I'm here tonight on behalf of the Ad hoc Historic Preservation Study Committee. I am but one member. Our committee was made up of representatives from various boards. I represented the Historic District Commission. Lou George represented Preservation. Jim Sears represented the Planning Board, Corinne Doherty, the Zoning Board, and Eric Mitchell, the Finance Committee on our committee. I will be brief with our three items before you. With our first one, the demolition delay of historically significant buildings, what we have are suggested revisions to a bylaw that does already exist. With this bylaw, as with the others, the Commission's goal was to accomplish historic preservation goals while being very targeted and seeing where and how we can minimize the effect on property owners that might get caught up in the net that really shouldn't be for historic preservation. So with the demolition delay, currently it's a two-step process. A building over 100 years old applies for a demolition permit, gets flagged, recommended to the Preservation Commission to hold a public meeting to see if it's historically significant. If they decide no, the process is over and a permit's issued. If they decide yes, then it goes to a public hearing, after which a demolition delay might be implemented. With our suggested changes to this bylaw, first off is a change to the definition of demolition. This was raised by the building commissioner when he became the Danvers building commissioner, in that the previous definition is vague, and it could have led to too many properties being referred to the commission for renovating their porch or even changing like areas around windows that are not demolition. And so our change in that section is to refine that, so only structures that are truly being partially or totally demolished would be referred to us. It lessens the burden on other people who might be caught in the net. The next change is the date of applicability. Currently, the bylaw covers structures that are 100 years or older as of today, which means tomorrow it'll cover even more, and then the day after it'll cover even more. And that has been fine, though as time is moving on, there will come a point where that is not. What the commission has suggested is, instead of a rolling date, to pick a fixed date of 1925 or prior. This date was determined by the commission after looking at certain structures in town, after talking to the town archivist, trying to pick a workable, solid date to stop that roll. This will provide certainty for property owners. You know when you buy a structure which side of 1925 it's on. It's not going to roll over you at some point in the future. So that provides stability. And the 1925 date is fairly conservative compared to other towns. Some towns do every building 50 years or older, or 75. So ours is much more limited than that. Another shift was language about transfer of ownership if a demolition delay was put on a structure. This is language that every other community that revised their demolition delay bylaw in the past decade has added. And it really clears up a vagary where our bylaw is silent as to what would have happened in this situation. And the whole point of putting a delay on a historic structure is to negotiate with the redeveloper and try to find some sort of solution, some sort of compromise to either save the structure, to save as much of it as you can. And how it's sometimes done is a developer would make the previous owner apply, in which case you can't actually talk to and negotiate with the person who's going to knock it down. And that undermines the whole intention of the bylaw, which is one of trying to negotiate on behalf of the community. So that change was added in. The last change, the last item of this bylaw I'll speak to you about is the length of the delay period. As I think I mentioned previously, it's currently, if determined at a public hearing to be historically significant, a delay up to 12 months could be placed before a demolition permit is issued. We compared that to many surrounding communities. There were several that had 18, some had 24, and we, as a committee, were on this one fairly split as to how we wanted to approach it. There were some on the committee who felt that 12 was appropriate. There were others that wanted 18. And what we had suggested as a compromise is a tiered approach. For buildings that are up to 199 years old, nothing changes. It would still be a 12-month delay. But if the structure is over 200 years old or on the National Register of Historic Places, those that are the highest level of significance, we recommended a change to 18 months. We kept that really targeted. It would only apply to certain structures, but those which would truly be considered as significant structures. That's the proposed changes. I'd be happy, Mr. Chairman, to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I should have mentioned, and I'll do that moving forward, the Select Board voted favorably unanimously on this article. On Article 36, they voted unanimously, and on Article 37, they voted unanimously with one abstention favorably on all three.
Thank you, and we'll do
And
these,
I'll make a point of noting that, since I forgot to do that in the first view.
we'll do these one at a time, and Wally, we'll start down there.
Actually, I'm good with this. I'm good with this one.
Good, okay.
You know, only to say, Dan, that it sounds like the committee really worked thoughtfully and with the right amount of research to kind of see what would work. And the committee was suggested, I think, by us to begin with, and I think you've done your job, so I'm good with this.
Yeah, I'm all set. Thanks for your work.
Aaron? No, I'm sorry, Mike.
No, I want to echo what Arthur said. I think that this was a committee that we, you know, as a board, pushed for. I think that it was as good a group of selected people who were on that committee as we've had on boards, very thoughtful. I think my understanding from conversations that I've had with a number of the different people, including Dan, who were on this board, is that there was what I would describe as the necessary give and take on all of these things, and I really appreciate that. And you know, I support what you've come up with, and I thank you for it.
Thank you.
I agree with everybody. I'm all set, thank you.
I just really have a question. So, and this may be for you, Dan, or maybe for somebody from the town. So the demolition by neglect, if you can't get a hold of the property owner. or they just
We'll
blow
get
you-
to that one.
Oh, okay.
We're focused just on 35 right now.
Okay, I'll shut up. I'm good.
Good, okay. And so I will just, to be clear, as I served on this committee, my vote is tacit in the document that I certainly served with hardworking members of this community. So we have presented to you, I think, a phenomenal product. I will abstain to vote here, but I would not do justice if I didn't give a vote of support to my colleagues. And so questions from the audience? I saw one hand. Did I see any other hands before I come back around? Any other hands out there?
My name is Kevin Barrich, 34 Poplar Street. So
Yes.
I live in a house that is covered by this bylaw. I had the pleasure of appearing before the Preservation Committee, so I could tear down a porch. So I fall neatly into that explanation that was given. Look, this town has been settled for quite a long time, the king unwilling. 1925 seems to me like something that's old, not something that's historic by this town, right? If we were in a different part of the country that wasn't settled or even a part of the United States until 1900, I would say that 1925 was potentially historic. I'm not sure it is here. I do like that we've adopted a fixed date. I think that makes sense. I think, though, then we somehow added back in the problem again by using a relative 200-year date for another issue in the same bylaw. So one step forward, one step back there. So overall, I think it's a good change. If I were to pick every word in it, these would not be exactly the words, but I like you all said, I think the committee did good work and a lot of balancing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As I scan the audience, seeing no more hands,
Move the article.
is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a point of order?
Yes, sir. I have a motion on the floor, FYI.
It's not specific to this motion, but in general.
Yes.
Are you moving these favorable, unfavorable, or no action? I think that we've run into some problems in the past with confusion when there's been a no action.
As written. When we move the article, we move it as written.
Favorably, unfavorable, or no action?
As written, favorably.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that that's the case, that when this,
Yeah, and you'll see one probably coming up, and we'll be
I'm
very
just,
clear that
that's
it's no
why I was
action.
asking a point of order.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion on the floor with a second to support the article. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I abstain. It passes. Next.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up is the Historic District bylaw. With this one, it has the least amount of language, the least proposed changes. Everything in this bylaw is a grammatical change, or we have the enforcement section was a recommended change by town council. This bylaw has never been changed in the 50 years since it was adopted, and it mirrors the state law, the Historic Districts Act. Well, the state law has been changed several times, but we never changed ours to keep up with it. So that is part of the reason behind this. Now, that being said, the study committee recommended only these tiny changes to the bylaw, and I know that the Finance Committee has received the report. The study committee made really clear that they wanted to see some policies implemented in the historic district, and that certain parts of the bylaw were not being used. The bylaw, for example, allows the Historic District Commission to create lists of pre-approved products, pre-approved siding or windows or fences, and if a homeowner in the district were to use one of those, they wouldn't need to go through the legal ad process. They wouldn't need to go through the public hearing. They would be all set, and that would save the homeowner time. It would be logistically straightforward. And so that was something we really wanted the Historic District to take into account. Another policy change that's actually already changed, thanks to the planning department, was a couple years ago, the town had started charging homeowners in the historic district for those legal ads, whereas they never had before. The town had picked up that tab. But the planning department has reversed that. The study committee was really strongly against those homeowners who already have a burden of being in the district being charged for legal ads. And the last recommendation there was, as the bylaw is written, to ensure to be judging each structure based on its own unique history and its own date. We do have structures that were built in the district after the district was created. We have structures of a variety of different ages. They are not all first period houses, and that should be taken into account. So I just wanted to mention that, as that was the full picture of our recommendation on that bylaw. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I have no questions.
Aaron?
No questions.
Mike?
No, thanks.
All set.
All set.
I'm good.
Questions from the audience? Is there a motion?
Motion to move the article.
That's written.
As written. And a second?
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I abstain. Third time's a charm.
Excellent, Mr. Chairman. So the last article I have to talk with you on behalf of the study committee is a proposed demolition by neglect bylaw. This was one that the commission had spent a great deal of time investigating how other towns and cities approach this. The concept of demolition by neglect is something that, well, with my example of the historic district law not changing in 50 years, when many historic preservation bylaws were adopted, it was an eventuality that was not considered. And it's one that many towns and cities have gone back to and added to their historic preservation bylaws with a couple different approaches to it. The concept of demolition by neglect is simply a property owner leaving a vacant building to deteriorate. This could circumvent the historic district bylaw. This could circumvent the demolition delay restrictions. And so it's sort of a hole amongst the historic preservation laws. Some towns have a demolition by neglect bylaw in their zoning book that would cover every single building in town. That is absolutely not what we are suggesting. We have put together what we believed was the most targeted, only significant historic structures would be included way to approach this. We first considered putting it in the demolition delay bylaw. Many towns do this. That would have covered all that that bylaw would cover, which is anything before 1925, and that still seemed too broad. We considered putting it in the historic district bylaw, which is also an option that some towns do. But not even every structure in the historic district would necessarily warrant that protection, and there's also a couple outside the historic district. So what we settled on is it would only apply to structures on the National Register of Historic Places, which is the most narrowed down, finite category that has clear historic significance. In order to get added to the historic, the National Register, a town would have to have recommended the structure, usually a historical commission or preservation commission. Then they send it on to the state. The state has to approve that it meets these strict standards of being listed on the state and then the National Register. At that point, property owners have the opportunity to object to their property being listed, and their objection means it cannot be put on the National Register. After that, assuming there was not that objection, it gets sent on to the National Park Service in Washington, D.C., who have to sign off that that structure is historically significant enough to America to be put on the National Register. That is a very high bar to meet. It's also something that takes a lot of time to do. It could take years. So only those of the strictest significance are covered. I went through the assessor's records online, the Patriot Properties database, and it would apply to about 1.19% of all the parcels in Danvers. It is very targeted. Out of the 157 in the two historic districts, it only applies to 104. So not even all of those. And then there's 8 outside the district on the National Register. There's also like the library and cemeteries, and so those we left out of account here naturally. The other points for me to make is the way it is written is that only a vacant building could trigger this bylaw. If a structure got to the point that it was about to collapse and it was inhabited, the Board of Health would have acted way before this as a health risk. So this would only ever be able to be put into practice if it is vacant. The authority is really narrow as to what it covers, is just the structure, the roof, the chimney. We include chimney because for many historic houses, that is part of the structure. It's not just like an add-on, like a modern home, but the house is kind of built around the chimney, so if the chimney falls in, the house would fall in. And yep, so just to ensure that it is not going to collapse in on itself, and the process we've laid out is a long due process with public hearings. We need the confirmed opinion, expert opinion of the building commissioner that such a situation is indeed demolition by neglect, that a structure is going to fall in on itself. There's a public hearing. The Preservation Commission has to agree. The Preservation Commission then also has to decide, would it be a loss to the town if that building falls down? Not everyone necessarily would even be that, so that would narrow you even further down. And I think that that's it. And I would say this one, as with, I didn't mention the demolition delay, was discussed by the Preservation Commission at their meeting at the end of March. And it was favorably voted out there, and that they would be the commission that would be overseeing that potential bylaw. And Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay. Ollie.
So what's the consequences if you don't act on any of these? I have a homeowner who's letting his building deteriorate, fits every line item in here. I still don't want to do anything. What's my consequences?
So your consequence is, first off, they try to negotiate voluntarily, but in this situation, it seems like it'd be past that situation. The building commissioner would order the owner of that property to make it safe and stable under this, to prevent it from being demolished by neglect. With a order from the building commissioner such as that, it could be enforced by taking the person to a court, as other orders from the building commissioner could be.
We don't specify that, or we just assume that that's the path it'll take?
It is in there under process, I believe at the very end.
I think that's V,
Appendix
also known
E.
as 5, on page 2 that's in the back.
It's actually the very last page in the warrant booklet.
Yep.
Go to the very end. turn back
Appendix
one page.
E,
Yeah.
page
Oh, in the
2.
warrant book. Oh, yes, that's a different page number.
All right. I have nothing else.
Okay.
I'm just wondering how you force somebody to do something. You know, if it's in a state and there's no money and.
Did you find the sections 4 and
I
5?
saw it,
You
yeah.
got it, okay.
Well, I would imagine it would be a similar process when the Board of Health has to go in and secure a home. We have the authority to contract that work, and then the cost would be leaned against the property, and the cost would be collected at some point. Could be at the time of sale, years down the road.
Hopefully.
Potentially.
Right.
Yeah, this looks very narrowly tailored, and it really only applies to a few properties, and only then if the situation was in such a state of disrepair that it's essentially a danger. So I think I'm okay with it.
I'm basically okay with it, but I did have one question, and I can't find it in here. But you specifically, I think, in Appendix E, A, B, C, D, E, I think it is, referred to 199 Hobart Street.
In appendix.
And I can't, but it doesn't matter whether you.
The study report, the full study
Yeah,
report
right.
that the committee had written mentioned
Oh,
that
that's
as
where I saw
one
it, right.
ongoing example.
All right, and what is specifically, why was that? Because I actually got out before I came here and went over and looked at the property. Because if I brought it up on the phone, it looked great. And at least the structure, what I was able to see. And then when I got there, it still looked structurally sound, just from the road, but it looked like it needed a lot of outside paint, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's been neglected in that respect, but it didn't look like it was collapsing. But why did you refer to that property? Is that a property does that fall into the already historically, is it on the historic list already?
It is already on the National Register, and we use that as an example because we had seen people in the community online and various Facebook groups talking about that property. So that was just one example that we mentioned. With that property, it has had a hole in the roof plugged by either a blanket or a tarp for about 5 years.
Oh.
Has not had electricity or heat in that time. It's been vacant since, I believe it is 2012, give or take a year, and has been uninhabited. It had a barn out back that was also on the National Register. The barn is from the mid-1600s. That was let to decay and entirely fell in on itself, so it's not even there anymore, which you ordinarily could not have demolished that in the historic district. And the home itself has ties going all the way back to the witch trials. It's where the militia met to elect their officers before marching to Lexington and Concord. It's one of the oldest structures in town, and really through the witch trials connection is probably the #1 reason that it was put on the National Register, and that people were accused there, people appeared before the judges there and whatnot. But with the neglect, it's really the hole in the roof, and that is one where the building commissioner has made some attempts and has been unable, has not been allowed inside to see how after so many years the structure has been affected. So that was one that they had mentioned to us as well. And so that's why it was the example. It's not meant only for one thing, but it just seemed as though that was the example that had been most talked about in the community.
What is the future of that building?
Part of me wants to say it depends on whether this passes or not. But we will, I'm not entirely sure that I can answer that, but it was purchased by somebody not as their primary home, as a second property, and has been never lived in since 2012.
Okay, this sounds like one that would really want to save, but we'll let it go at that. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good.
You answered my questions, I'm good.
Ted,
I'm good.
from the audience.
Move the article.
As written.
As written.
Second?
Second.
Second, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I abstain. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next is Article 38 on pages 24 and 25 of the warrant booklet. This was submitted as a citizen's petition. The Select Board did recommend unfavorably by a vote of 3-2 on this article, and the petitioner is here tonight to present.
How's it going? Mike Trainer, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 5. I'm here to present a citizen's petition in regards to a recall in the town of Danvers. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm just going to go, I know we kind of went through this last year, so I'm just going to kind of go over an overview and then answer your questions. Basically, Danvers has no process to remove someone from office in an extreme situation. There's no way to do it. It's up to the individual whether or not they want to leave a board. Throughout the state, a lot of cities and towns are starting to implement recall processes. There's been a couple, really every year at this point, and I just think the world's changed a lot in the last couple of years, and I think this is something that we should consider here. Because I don't think it should be up to the individual on the board. I think it should be up to the citizens. If a large amount of citizens, and I'll go through the process, feel that someone shouldn't be in office, maybe we should have another election. And that's basically what I'm getting at here. So basically, it's just a 3-tier process. So the first step of the process is someone has to collect 350 signatures and submit it to the town clerk. The only thing that does is start a time clock, because the thing is, we do want to make this difficult to do, and we do want to use it in extreme situations, so we do want that time clock. So after those 350 signatures are certified, in a 4-week period, or 20 business days is essentially what it is, you have to get signatures and have them certified from 20% of registered voters in this town. So that's pretty big. So after we have this next election, I mean, it's a fluid number, but you're looking at 4,517 people as of now. You would have to get that, more than that, those signatures. So you would have to have that number certified. And then we would move on to step 3, which would be another election, where people would either vote to recall this person or not vote to recall this person. So it's a pretty simple process. The way this is written, pretty much every city and town that has this, it follows this exact thing. It's not reinventing the wheel. I mean, you can look at different towns, whether it be Wenham, Manchester by the Sea, towns such as like Otis, or even Holyoke, or New Bedford's actually going through it right now, but it follows this. It's pretty simplified. And like I said, no one really reinvented the wheel on these things. A lot of these, some of these have been in place since the 50s. They're very rarely used. They're not used much at all. And like I said, it's just a protection. That's all it is. And I can probably guess what the questions are, but I'm happy to answer them.
I'm going to supersede a couple questions and ask you, Mr. Trainer, if I recall, you presented this to us last year.
Yes.
Have you changed anything? Is there much substantive changes?
No, nothing really has been changed because, like I said, it really follows other cities and towns. I liked the process behind it because I don't want election after, like, I don't want it to be easy to have another election. So I actually kept it very much the same. You guys had recommended no action last year when we had a stand and vote. 38 people agreed with that, 110 disagreed. So I kind of felt people liked this, so I kept it exactly the same.
And it comes to us from the select board not supported, the
3-2 unfavorable.
3-2 unfavorable. Before I even open it up, what I don't necessarily want to do is to just toss this to the wind and give you unfavorable. You clearly are passionate about it and you have put a lot of thought into it. I think there's an option for us that I would just mention to my colleagues. You are proposing a thorough approach to how we conduct government, and we just proposed and supported a committee be formed to review that. The Town Meeting Act and Town Manager Act, I think, is a better place for the discussion that you're presenting.
Yes.
And so it's to give you a little bit more air beneath your wings as opposed to going down the not supporting it. I would, if and I'll open it up for questions, that's where I would like it to go. Since I get a chance to hold the microphone, I just wanted to put that out. I just wanted to put it out in front because I definitely see where you're coming from, and I think it could use more discussion at the citizens level, and I think that would be the appropriate place for it.
Yep, so I can respond to that. So again, that committee is being formed. Almost all the recent ones have been done as home rule petitions.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, you're going to create a committee, right? So at this town meeting, we'll create a committee, then the committee will meet, and then we'll probably vote on it like the following year. This is a kind of hot button topic, right? And when this committee goes through and they review the town charter or the town manager act, you're going to recommend some changes that are good for the town, right? By doing this as a home rule petition and having town meet and vote on this one issue, why would you I don't think it's a good idea to put a hot button topic inside something that you're trying to get passed that will in turn take another year if someone disagrees with one little thing in it.
Understood.
It's this way town meetings voting yes or no on this.
Understood. So I'm gonna take questions from my colleagues, and we'll circle back around. But I wanted to see where that would go because I think that I'd hate to just circle back around and give you.
Yeah,
note.
and I will say, I just got some information today. So New Bedford's actually currently doing this now. And the letter that the mayor sent to the city council recommended that they do this as a home rule petition. So they're doing it as a home rule petition. And they said it was, I can actually read the thing on there, but it was extensively reviewed by the city council. Attorneys. I can read it if you'd like.
I don't think it's necessary.
I'm just saying that's the way they're doing it. They did an extensive review. They had a whole office in the city review it.
So I know.
Yeah.
Substantively, if it's the same as what we had last year, and we certainly haven't changed, I will go to the committee for any questions, and then we'll come back around and see where we land.
I guess I have a couple comments. I think last year we voted to take no action. I think I supported it, but I don't remember particularly. I think there was a pretty significant amount of support at town meeting that close enough that if we had supported it, I think it probably would have passed. Just my guess. I would say I think that the 20% threshold is extraordinarily high, such that if people do have concerns about people using this as a political tool, in my opinion, if some hack wants to try and recall somebody for taking a vote they didn't like on a fee or an ordinance, go ahead and waste your time, because it's going to go nowhere. It's catnip. Here, go play. Go try and recall somebody, because you're not going to get 20% of the town to sign a piece of paper for that. So I would also say I think that this petition and discussion of recall provisions started about 2.5 years ago after the behavior of an elected official. And that elected official, I believe, is running for office again. So maybe we should have this on the books. And that's pretty much where I said I support this. And also, he's extremely persistent.
Yes, he is. Thanks, Ted. Aaron.
Yeah, so I think I had questions last time, and I think that the recommendation was really to have some legal counsel support this in writing up the documents. And I know that other towns are using something similar, but it would be good to hear from you, say that, okay, you consulted counsel and they're recommending this. Did that happen?
Yeah, this was initially prepared several years ago
Okay.
as a select board warrant article that did not move forward, but it was reviewed at the time by the
Okay.
town council, and then Mr. Trainer took it from
Okay.
there.
I appreciate that you care, and I agree with what's going on with the select board and the behavior and actions of previously. Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I might. Sorry.
Mr.
Just-
Selectman.
Thank you. One point of clarity. This was submitted and reviewed by council previously. It had a minor change, though, and that is, in there's a provision, this recall cannot be done for anybody who is doing their duty as an elected official. A decision they make is not grounds, and it explicitly says that in the language. You cannot do a recall position for someone doing their job, whether you like the decision or not. And this was not a targeted issue. This was issues that came up, made us recognize there was no opportunity for anybody. Could be a racist, could be someone who has a criminal background, whatever it is. But you cannot recall someone specifically for doing their job as an elected official.
Thank you, sir. Aaron.
I'm good, thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, I don't see, you describe it as a hot button issue. I don't know where the hot button is. To me, a hot button issue means that there's actually something that's going on currently that results in this. And there's no even beginning process or desire to recall anybody at this point. And when you talk about the timing, we have not looked at the Town Meeting Act for 70 years. We haven't looked at the Town Manager Act for 30 years. These are very, very important things that we're doing. There is I understand that everybody else, or many of the other ones, have done them as a home rule. They've done it because they weren't in the process of reviewing their town charter. We are now in the process of reviewing our town charter, and the appropriate place to review this is within the confines of that town charter review committee. Because that's what this is. This is about how we govern. It's plain and simple. And what we are doing with the town charter review is looking at the holistic process in which we govern this community. So it is not separate. There is nothing pressing that requires it to be done right away. Put it in with the rest of the stuff that we're looking at as part of this. And if it comes out as part of our new and adjusted Town Manager Act or our new Town Meeting Act, then I'm going to tell you right now, I will sit here today and support it when that happens. But I will not support this at this point when we are in the middle of conducting that 70-year review for the first time and to try to just do something separate, because it's not that important. We've never used it, and there's no indication that we're going to use it anytime soon.
We might use it 50 years from now, but the thing is, people...
Excuse me, sir.
Oh,
Wait,
yes?
Yeah. We're going to stick here, and we'll give you an opportunity to give comment. All right.
Thanks, I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go around, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay, I'd
Thank you.
like to answer.
Paul.
I voted against it last year, and I'm not in support of it right now, to be frankly honest with you. I've always felt that recall's very drastic. Now, you've cited incidents, and I think Select Board Member Trask also clarified some of the things. You get in a town the size of Danvers, and you don't know who's running, shame on you. So if you're gonna hold a grudge or try to slip something by somebody, I just can't see it. I can't see it. Now, however, if I go along with what Mike's saying, and I'd like to ask the town manager, would this be part of the review? Would this specific item be, could it or would it be part of the review of the Town Manager Act or the Town Meeting Act?
That's a hard question to answer. I don't know in the 90s whether the committee that was formed recommended simply changes to the documents as they existed or recommended new language. I don't see anything that would preclude the committee from recommending that something be added to these documents. So a concept like this would be eligible. I don't think there's any reason it couldn't, I guess.
Well, I guess that was gonna be my next question. Could it, if it's not, if there's been no history, let's say, the committee is already formed, is that correct?
No.
No.
So the
this would be
committee's not
something town
even
meeting will
formed.
discuss.
But as the committee's being formed, could we, the group, get it before the committee so that they would consider it?
So if I could step back, I think the way I understand that this process worked in Danvers previously and works in other communities is that the committee, if Article 7 passes, the town moderator will put together a citizen committee. That committee will conduct a series of public hearings and input sessions, and residents, they'll pull boards, they'll ask the finance committee for input, they'll ask the select board for input, they'll ask the planning board, electric light, everybody for input. They'll also ask town meeting. They may bring in outside experts to speak on very narrow and specific topics. But any topic that is of import to members of the community that have to do with the way that the town governs itself, it's all fair game. That committee then takes all of that input, puts it into a report, would work with council to develop language, and then that language would make its way through the same town meeting process that we're in right now. It would start with the select board, come to the finance committee, and ultimately town meeting would have to evaluate those recommendations and decide which ones they agree with and potentially don't agree with.
So there's the opportunity to, basically, to get it reviewed at some point or talked about. That's basically all I'm looking for, because
Could I, Mr. Chair, as an example, I think it would be appropriate for this board to make a motion, if they so desired, to refer this to that committee if established. And that this article would therefore be, in essence, on their plate immediately as part of that review, based on us referring it to them. And having that be our motion for town meeting, and to tell town meeting that I think, we expect this to be part of your review. We refer this to you as part of that review under Article 7.
I want to go to Arthur and then. Thank you.
Yeah, so I pretty much agree with what Mike said relative to where this should be looked at. I mean, I believe, I appreciate your persistence. On the other hand, you didn't change anything, and I have issues with it last year, so I'm persisting at you right back that I don't see anything that would make me change my mind. And we don't have to go into those specific things. We discussed them last year. But that being said, absolutely. I mean, if we're going to review the governing articles, really, of the town, how we run our government, then that's where this should be, and it should be part of that. And as part of the entire look at whether or not we're going to change things, add things, do new things, that's definitively where it should be. I don't have it, and I wouldn't have a problem whatsoever if that's what they decided to do at that time. So I think Mike's suggestion of a motion to refer to that committee, assuming that committee is established, is probably the most sensible way to handle it.
I think I would mirror exactly what Arthur said.
Okay.
I wasn't for it last year, I'm not for it this year.
So before I go to the audience,
Yeah, so like I said, just with that committee, it's gonna be 8 people. I don't even know if they'll, like, you can make the recommendation to look at this. I don't know what's gonna come out of it. I don't know if it's gonna come up. I don't know their feelings on it. What I'm saying is if I do it this way, town meeting as a group could vote yes or no on this. And that's, and it's gonna be putting it in other stuff, grouping it all together. And you say it's not a hot button topic, it's probably going to be a controversial topic. If you had 15 things in a town charter, this is probably gonna be a point of discussion. And like I said, we could just vote on this now. It's the same in almost every city and town. It's just, let's vote. I just think we should vote on this one particular issue. That town charter is a big deal, and there's probably going to be a lot of changes. Like said, it hasn't been reviewed in 50 years. I wouldn't throw that in there. I would just vote yes or no on this particular issue, like other cities and towns are doing.
understood. Ted?
Thank you.
I get that there's things that could be dealt with in a charter review, but I'm also reluctant to give an already long homework. There are things I absolutely think we should refer to that. Things that we can handle and have been discussed for fairly great length in the past couple of years. We know that we need to do that. It's 7 people that we have, about 7 town meeting members who may or may not have already heard all the discussions on this. That's a pretty big time commitment, what we're already doing. And I don't want us to just take everything, or not everything, but overuse that as an option of referring it. Like, we've talked on this. Like, I've already made my position clear. I really don't see how this harms the town. There are things later on in the agenda that I probably would support moving to the charter review, but I kind of think we should vote on it as it is.
Questions from the audience? Sir, and then Nova.
I have my handy copy of town meeting time. I think a motion to refer is an allowable subsidiary motion. It's not a main motion. And I believe the recommendation to this committee is a main motion. So I like the idea, but I'm not sure that it's.
Is that a process point you're making? Okay.
It is a process point of making it. So I think people have been scolded before for having too many issues wrapped into one motion, or too many issues wrapped into one article. And now we're saying the opposite. We're not going to consider this one because we're depending on the passage of another one. It seems to me to be contrary to the logic we've used before. Town meeting tied themselves in procedural knots. That's the only reason this didn't pass last year. So I think this committee should refer it with a favorable or unfavorable motion, as the select board has taken care to do. I don't think no action should be a recommendation that comes out of this committee. Thank you.
But to be clear, no action is what came out of the select board.
Nova.
No action last year.
Nova.
Again, Nova San Mateo Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I just want to agree with the last speaker that I think that town meeting should just be allowed to vote on this. I'm not sure where the panic is about it exactly. It seems fairly reasonable to be able to do this. In fact, I don't know if anybody saw the article about the Holyoke City Councilor. It was like in the Globe last week, about how he was charged with child pornography and arrested for a bunch of stuff, and they tried to oust him, and they couldn't. He won the lawsuit and continued to serve out the rest of his term. So it's reasonable. I'm not saying it's going to happen here ever, but it's okay to have something on the books to allow us to do this. And last year, we didn't have this committee that we haven't even passed yet, and it got no action. So to say that, like, oh, we'll just refer it to the committee, but what happened last year then? Why didn't we deal with this last year when there was no even committee in sight? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Tony Betancourt, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 5. I don't know. Let me ask you a question, if I'm not mistaken here. This is only to do with elected officials, someone that was voted in, basically, right? Couldn't remove anybody from the planning board, anything like that, right? Even the town manager couldn't remove him because he was, am I right or wrong?
That's correct. It'd be the major board, it's the elected.
Exactly. So the reason being, I think we should do this because we need to have something in place, my honest opinion. So, I mean, to me, it makes a lot of sense.
Thank
We
you.
got to lose.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions from the audience?
I move that we refer this to the study committee in regards to the town charter review.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? That passes. Yeah. So I will say, I am hopeful that we can come to some resolution on this that doesn't spin out in the community. And so the reason that I opened the way I did, I'd hate to see it not get the support with all of the energy that you're putting behind it. So, you know, it is, I think, not dead, but moving where it needs to be for favorable. So thank you very much for your time, Mr. Trainer.
Thank you.
Next, we have a series of 4 citizens petitions that were submitted by Mr. Zubair. You can find them on pages 25 and 26 of the warrant booklet. The first article, 39, before Mark speaks, I'll just kind of note the board voted this favorably with an amendment, and I'd like to kind of explain what that is. They tabled the discussion on this one on night 1 of the review, and I had a conversation with the town attorney, and then they took action on the second night. Essentially, the question that was asked by the select board was whether they had 2 concerns with this article as written. The first is that it appropriated funds, and the second is that there were to mandate the implementation of this without understanding what the impacts could be was concerning to the board. So their question to council was, could this be amended so that the motion was to, and I'll just read exactly what they vote on, to see if the town will vote to explore the use of a handheld electronic vote tabulation system for town meeting. That's ultimately what they passed unanimously, and the guidance from council was essentially 2-part. Citizens petitions generally cannot be amended. They can only be amended on the floor of town meeting. So for this to move forward as the board voted, there would need to be an amendment on the floor of town meeting. And a citizen's petition can only be amended if the amendment is within the scope of the original article. And the sort of most obvious example of this would be if there was a citizen's petition to rezone a particular part of town with a particular use out on the edge of town. Town meeting could not amend that on the floor to make it apply to all of downtown, because reasonably the people who signed the petition did not agree to that. But the amendment that the board is contemplating per the town attorney is well within the scope of the article, which is essentially to come back with recommendations on this exact article. And so I would defer to the petitioner to provide an overview.
Thank you. Mark Zubrek, 9 Glendale Drive, Danvers resident. I put this article, or we put this article in motion as a result of what's been happening at our annual town meetings and our special town meetings in regards to the types of reaction we got or the residents received and the town meeting members received at the town meeting, because the votes are not necessarily applicable to what the residents hear or what the town moderator hears. Most of our votes are by voice vote, and that's intentional to keep the town meeting moving. But in this case, what we can do is, and like the town manager said, that this is going to have to be amended at the town meeting. I got excited about using this kind of a handheld electronic vote tabulation for town meeting votes. And it's been applicable in many towns. I've identified 60 different towns that use it. And the example that I used for our type of government and our type of depth of town meeting, elected town meeting, was 150 is a good number and has been used for 12 years at Chelmsford. Westford, on the other case, has used the tabulation system on an open town meeting, which could be 400, 500, 600 people showing up at one meeting. And they have been successful in using that. This system is very inexpensive. For one thing, it gives accountability to every individual town meeting member that comes to the town meeting and registers as a voter. He receives one of these tabulators, and the vote is recorded on a regular basis. Now, what I gave you a write-up in regards to Article 39, and you have the package in front of you. I was unsuccessful in getting this published in the town meeting agenda, or the notes, the warrant articles. But I thought this would be something that can prevent and avoid any contentious votes that happen at town meeting. And it's a very simple process, and it can be used at various different stages, and the town moderator can select whether she goes to the tabulator or to a voice vote if she deems necessary, with the permission of the town meeting. So that's my idea, and this is not a contentious one. This is something that many, many towns use, and we can apply this at our meeting. But according to what the article says right now, it's to explore and identify what kind of a system can be used in our town. And I gave you information, there's even estimates in there in regards to what type of a system it would be, how it would be estimated, and what the costs of the system, which will not be applicable at this stage, was $12,000 2 years ago. So that is a system that's possible, and it can prevent a lot of contentious aggravation at town meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wally?
So is your system
I'm sorry?
a vote by town meeting member, by name? Or is this,
It's applicable.
or yea, nay is just the total number?
Yay, nay, and no
Abstention.
vote, I guess. That's one of the systems. And the thing is that you have a name applied or registered towards that clicker.
Is that something that's visible? I mean, are you gonna have a board visible to everybody in the room?
Yes, yes,
That says who voted what way?
right.
Arthur?
Steve, can you explain to me again how it's going to be amended?
So the article that you see on the screen would be, most of it would be stricken, and it would read as follows. To see if the town will vote to explore the use of a handheld electronic vote tabulation system for town meeting. So the entirety, the entire second and third sentences is
So that's
stricken.
it. So
That's out.
basically, it's to
To
explore,
explore the use.
and
Can you clarify what we're voting on?
So the select board's recommendation is that this be voted favorably if that amendment passes. So it's unfavorable with no amendment. It's favorable if that amendment passes. So essentially, the FinCom, if they supported the select board, would be sending it on favorably subject to an amended motion, and we would print that motion directly into the warrant booklet, at which
Right.
point presumably a select board member, because they are town meeting members, would be able to stand up and make that amendment.
Can I just make one point with this, and I apologize, Mr. Chair? I've been at this for 40 years. We have never once, as a finance committee, taken anything even close to this action. We either recommend something or we don't. We do not make contingent votes on this. I've never seen it happen. There's no reason to do it here, quite frankly, but I don't, is there ever an indication in which the finance committee basically says, well, we'll do it, let's hope somebody changes it when we get to town meeting? I've never seen it, 40-something years.
So, Mike, just to be clear, the guidance from council is that this board cannot make that. This board essentially can send it on favorably, unfavorably, or no action. The board is telegraphing to town meeting that they would support it subject to that amendment. So if that amendment were to fail, the board did not support this article for the two reasons noted previously. One is that it attempts to appropriate funds, and the second is that there may be a number of instances where a system like this would run contrary to the town meeting handbook, the general bylaw, potentially a local option that was adopted many, many years ago that designates to the town moderator the authority to call voice votes, et cetera. So a lot of their concerns is that this, it's not as simple as it sounds. There may be a lot of impacts that a system like this would have on existing rules of the road.
And I apologize, but would there be anything wrong with us also referring this to the town charter review? Because it seems to fall into part and parcel of how we run town meeting.
In theory, I don't think so.
You don't think we could?
I don't think you can. I think you could.
Interesting.
Sorry.
Yeah.
He said,
I'm going to skip you when we come back around.
Basically, what you anticipate being voted at town meeting would be simply the vote to explore the use of this type of a device.
That was the select board's vote, yes.
Okay. And I would not have a problem with that. I just don't know how we would vote tonight. I can't support it as it is, but the amended would be fine, but we don't have the amended before us tonight.
You're up, Paul.
I think, I feel the same way Arthur is. I won't support this way, but I'd like to see it explored per what the select board decided. I think that's where I'm headed with it. I don't know why people just can't raise their hand and say yes or no. It's not a hard thing. And we have other ways, I think there's two other ways we can vote. You can speak to, I think when we start the town meeting, the moderator chooses someone to tally the vote for each precinct, correct? And then the second, if you call for it, you can call for, I'm not sure of the term, but it's a standing individual vote. It's got to be.
Paul, I think you're wading into the waters that the council, that we have a town meeting handbook which describes the process.
Yeah.
This would be a change of that, so this is
Oh,
why
I know it would be a
would have
change
to-
of it, but that's why I'm not really crazy about it, because I don't understand what we've got, we're making it more complicated than it is, and we are appropriating money. And I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, it's really easy, it's not complicated, right, until someone gets into the system, it's hacked, it doesn't work one day, and then we're sitting there fiddling our thumbs, and we can't vote. So, well, we can vote, I guess, because we can always go back to the normal way, is that correct? Okay, that's it. Yep.
Mike, I'm going to go down, and if you have more on it, Aaron.
Okay, so I agree with the concept. I agree with the select board's recommendation. I also don't know how we would necessarily vote to make sure that that actually goes through, so I'm open to ideas on that. I have lost faith in humanity. I don't trust that people vote honestly and accurately, and I'm all for eliminating that question and putting this through.
So I guess the first thing, the voting to explore, that's a fairly abstract resolution.
So,
Assuming that the select board's recommendation passed,
what you wouldn't get a recommendation coming, in theory, staff we'd work with the town clerk's office, we would work with finance to go through. What would come back would be a series of decision points and changes that would be required should the board, then the finance committee, then town meeting support something like this. So in essence, we being, you know, probably my office in consultation with legal counsel and the clerk's office would come back and say, for a system like this to be used in the town of Danvers, here are the following documents and changes that would need to be made so that we would be consistent and compliant with existing law and the new rules.
and there's, assuming that we do decide to do charter review, there's nothing precluding that body from looking at this on its own volition,
I wouldn't think so.
right? Like, if they want to look at this, they can look at this, just like anything else in the town charter.
Yeah, and I think to be clear, I think the committee may have ideas, but the main purpose of the committee is to solicit ideas from others and bring
Right.
those together,
Yeah, I
and
get
debate
it.
them and discuss them publicly and then package them.
Okay. So, and I would say, you know, I happen to think that town meeting runs pretty smoothly. I know the vote in question last time that you guys questioned. The town moderator went to great lengths to educate you on the voting process before the meeting.
She does that every year.
And I know she does, and she specifically educated the folks that submitted that petition, and you guys didn't even take advantage of the voting rights and the I don't know what the right term is, recount or retabulation rights that you had on the floor at the time. And you guys also come before us every year lecturing us on how to tighten our belt and eliminate printer paper or mow the lawn less. And here we are, but hey, you guys don't even, like, you want $15,000 because you guys don't even pay attention to how town meeting works and utilize the motions that you have available to you. So with that said, if people want to explore this, fine, but I'm voting on the thing that's in front of me tonight, and I'd like to make a motion that we take no action.
The thing in front of you right now.
1 second, sir.
cannot be
1 second.
voted
Yeah, it can.
So,
It's either that or nothing.
Ted, before we go to motion, let me,
Yeah, so I did have the opportunity to, for a couple of different reasons, to be over in Marblehead, who was actually adopting this into their system this year. First thing that was clear from talking to the individuals over there that I spoke with was, that's an open town meeting. The general use for this is with open town meetings, and the primary value of it when you talk to them is because at open town meetings, there is a consistent problem with maintaining a quorum. And it's very difficult to be able to make sure that you have a quorum, and what that results in is lots of basically time being wasted before every vote in a determination as to whether or not there's a quorum present. The real value in these systems is actually in making a very quick determination that there is a quorum. And that's what they utilize this for primarily. Now, I understand that there are a couple of closed town meetings, Chelmsford being one of them, that have traditionally used this. I have no idea. I have to, and quite honestly, I don't think that I've gotten any legitimate information from anybody in regards to what Chelmsford's true process has been in the past in terms of how effective their moderators have been in terms of being able to operate meetings or any of that type of stuff. But and I'm also not aware of exactly how long Chelmsford town meetings go. But I will say this, the other thing that was absolutely prevalent in Marblehead is that the folks that wanted this in Marblehead wanted it predominantly because it is anonymous. And there is a belief in those communities, in these open town meeting communities, that when they deal with school issues, that what ends up happening is that parents who have school kids go to that portion of the town meeting, and they are very aggressive in terms of the way they react towards other people there. And there is a belief, again, I'm not in an open town meeting, I'm talking about what I was told, but there is a belief in that situation that when you have open town meetings where people have to raise their hand and say, I vote X, I vote Y, and they've got mothers and fathers and school kids near them, that they get browbeaten into voting that way. And they want this system, and this is part of the primary reasons they wanted it in Marblehead, was in an effort to be able to keep those votes anonymous so that people would not feel that pressure from those around them. I agree with, I think, what Wally said. Again, I've been down there for 40 years. There has never been an instance, in my estimation, in which there has been a travesty of justice, if you want to speak that way about it. I understand the concerns, as was said, about the last meeting. I also agree 100% with what Ted said in terms of how that meeting went. The inability to understand how process works, the inability apparently to understand what a no-action vote by this particular group means and what it means when you do not amend that vote, what a nullity means. I appreciate all of those things. But the people who are involved in this have been town meeting members for decades in some cases, and they should know better. This is simply a reaction because some people have got their nose bent out of shape. All that being said, once again, I'm more than happy to have it looked at, but for the first time in 30 years, in 70 years, we're looking at everything. This is a very appropriate thing to look at under those, what we're dealing with. So if the group that comes back with charter review comes back and says we should do electronic voting in the town meeting, I will once again say to you the same thing as I said before. I will support it. But I think it's ridiculous for us to be trying to throw these things in at a time when we're, for the first time in a long time, going to be looking at all these stuff in an overarching picture.
Thank you. Paul?
I'm all set. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, I'll put my 2 cents in now. My first question was, I want to make sure I understand the rules that folks didn't necessarily get. Voice vote, but there are other options that are available. Right? And it's hard for me to hear the discourse that we've been having coming out of, a town election and some of the other things. Fear and reactionary responses don't go well with me. I think being proactive, understanding the challenges that we're dealing with, and some of what we're seeing is kickback or reaction to this didn't go well, let's fix it. And every solution has its unintended consequences. There is no perfect solution to any of what we are doing. And so I appreciate what folks are saying, but I also recognize nothing is going to be exactly as we think it's going to be on the front end. And as it is written, I have dozens of questions, right? Introducing technology, I just assume you'll do a flag, right? The stop sign, yay, nay, right? Before I would spend money on technology, if that were something that were necessary for our accurate counting of representation. I don't know that I'm there. I suspect that this petition preceded council and preceded this printing. So it got printed up in here before the council got a chance to advise the shortening of the language. That's how.
The question was asked after the fact.
After the fact.
Do have a question.
So,
No, go ahead.
so normally, right, we have it, we vote it up, we vote it down, or whatever the case may be, and then, as some have seen, you're persistent and you try again. It could be that, or it could be something that gets a little bit more attention and traction, as some members have requested. And I'm not sure which motion is going to come before the body, but I certainly acknowledge there is a question about how we handle our representation at our meetings, and this seems a very quick fix solution that does not sit well with me, but I respect the question. So, Arthur, did you?
Yeah, I just want to, I think, as I'm listening to all of this, I think we're talking an awful lot about something that maybe we don't need to talk that much about at this point, because what I'm hearing is that, obviously, nobody up here supports what's up there in Article 39, so I think probably we're gonna have to vote no action on that. But what we're hearing is that the only thing that's gonna come before town meeting, if it's amended, is to have the town investigate what's there. That's, no harm can come from the town investigating what might be out there. And, you know, we should always be open to possibilities that may or may not make things easier. A town may find that it doesn't make sense, and maybe it's too cumbersome and takes too long. Maybe it doesn't, the technology doesn't work right, or whatever it is. But that's what they will do, and they'll figure it out. And, you know, we'll get some professional feedback that they can then take to the boards, and we can make a decision there. So I know that we still have audience questions. I mean, to me, though, I would be voting no action on this, and then if it's amended at town meeting, that's great, and then the town can investigate, so.
Thank you. With that, I will do audience. We're going to go ladies first this time.
Nova Saturday, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I'm open to the town exploring this. I mean, maybe it's because has already been put into motion, but like, do we even need this warrant article to look into this at all? Like, I'm sure that it won't just get eliminated now because it's already in the book, but does it matter if this passes or not? Can we just not look into it, whether we vote for it or not?
So that's a hypothetical, but if, for example, town meeting rejected this, nothing would stop Mr. Zubrick from attending those public meetings and recommending that the study committee take this on as a task.
Oh, speaking of that, that was my other comment, that it feels strange to me to talk about referring things to this study committee that doesn't even exist yet. We still have to vote on that, and it will probably pass, but we don't know that this committee is even going to exist.
Understood.
So talking about it seems strange.
Someone had to bring them, right? Okay. Thank you.
Just one clarification. This whole thing could have been done by the Board of Selectmen when they noticed the issue that was happening. And it didn't happen. That's why it's a petition by the residents of Danvers.
Thank you. Mr. Betancourt.
Yes, Tony Betancourt, Precinct 5, Town Meeting Member. Listen, I think it's a good thing, and we should adopt this, look into it and do it the way we should do it, because I'll be honest with you, I've been a town meeting member over 20 years, okay? And a lot of people have left being town meeting members because of the reason of votes and so on and so forth. And I'm not lying, I'm telling you the truth, okay? I've been there long enough to know what's going on and see what's happening. I think it's a smart thing to have this type of thing in place. The reason being, I've taken classes in my business and stuff like that. We had stuff like this, and you just hit a button, then 2 seconds, you know how many numbers are up there. You don't have to have names up there. It's by hitting the clicker, you can have yes and no's up there on the board real quick. It'll be very good and pretty accurate. If there was a question there, then you would look into it and do a stand and call vote or whatever. But I mean, working the way it's working, I don't think it's working out right. I think we need something in place, honestly.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. Yes. Mr. Trainer.
I just want to bring up one point. We brought up a contentious, vote at the last town meeting, but this has been going on for a while. Like, for example, at last year's town meeting, when you had the 38 to 110 vote, the town moderator said that she had doubt. And if you have doubt on a 38 to 110 vote, maybe the system that you're using, it's at no fault of hers, but it's what she's hearing, but it's not a reflection of what's going on in that room. I mean, that right there just proved it. The other thing is, too, when you keep putting it on this committee that doesn't yet exist, again, this is all going to be packaged into one town charter we vote on. Maybe I'm for a recall, but against this, and it all gets packaged this way. And if you do these things separate, at least we could just vote on them. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Any more audience?
Move no action.
Second. I have a question.
We have a motion and a second and discussion. Yes.
Why don't we just vote no? Well, I mean, we vote no action. We're sitting up here, we talk for a half an hour, 45 minutes. We're not going to vote for this thing as it is. I don't mind saying no.
We just vote that.
We just made the motion.
No action is no vote.
Yeah.
Well, let's say it, okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarity.
Yes, sir.
Point of privilege, whatever you want to call it. A no action is not an unfavorable vote. If Mr. Pollock is saying, he's saying he will not vote for it, no. He's saying no. He's not saying no action. He's saying no, which led us to an issue that we had last year, and I agree with Mike that it's a very subtle difference when you vote no to a no action is not a yes. Very subtle, I get it, but that's what I was saying earlier is yes or no, and you said yes is a favorable. If you don't say no, you're indicating you were going to be favorable. That's fine earlier. But no action opens up this Pandora's box that you can clearly state. If you say no, as Mr. Pollock has indicated he would do, that's a signal to town meeting, we don't believe this is a good thing. Not, we're punting it.
I don't understand at all what you're saying there.
There's a difference between no,
What is the?
unfavorable, favorable, or no action.
No, we make a main motion, and our main motion is no action. If we do not agree with what's there, we either amend it, in which we would have the ability to do, we approve the language as it is, or we vote no action. That's what we do. Once that motion is made and it appears on the town meeting floor, the town meeting members, we can't talk. We can't do anything once we leave this building. They then have the right to be able to deal with it as they want. The problem with that particular one is if you let the no action motion stand, then what's happening is a yes vote is a vote for no action, and a no vote is a vote for no action. I'm sorry now after 20 years to let you know that's how it works, but that's what a legal nullity is. And that's what apparently happened in terms of that particular night. But our action, our motion of no action means that it is a no vote from us. There is no other way for us to say no to this except for a vote of no action. That's what we do. The select board can vote unfavorable. They can say they don't like it. We vote no action, and that becomes the main motion on the floor.
And that's the action that you as a board need to make, because I will make the amendment at town meeting, and then we'll have an amended motion of no action, and one of them is going to fail.
And so, let me just point out for the folks in the room, this is what they give me on my first night.
Good luck.
Right? Right? Does the seat get any hotter? Here's what I think, right? So we have a motion on the floor. We have a motion of no action, right? No action, depending on where that falls, right? The complicated jargon and adjustments have already been put forth by the select board, and so no action by our part does not impact that, correct me if I'm wrong, does not impact that, which is a strategy to address the intent and the language and to clean that up. So I think we're in a good place with where we are, okay? So we have a vote of no action, we have a move and a second. Can I call the question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
Abstain.
One abstain. Got it.
It's not unexpected. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is only the first one, so let's go on.
Yeah, so Article 40 was voted 3-2 unfavorable by the select board.
Now, this one is different, but I'll just explain it because we have been dealing with the Beverly Airport expansion, noise, and everything else that comes along with it. And we, as a town, have not been able to obtain any tax revenue. And that's within the law, that's the way it is. We have started talking about a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes, which is applicable for different functions in our town for land that's occupied by the university or whatever, the schools. There's also land that's occupied as a water reservoir for Salem. They pay a pilot program. Salem has been working on us to get a pilot program to pay for sewage disposal in Salem, because that's where the facility is handled. So this has been a point of contention for many, many years. Now, all this article is asking for is for a letter or a support to the town manager to pursue this matter as far as it can go. And we don't know where it's going to go. The town manager doesn't know where it's going to go. And I agree with that. But we need, as a town, to support our neighbors that are being affected by the expansion of the airport. And we have 170 acres of land that's being dedicated to the airport itself. So all this is a reinforcement of the possible pilot program negotiations, and we need some support from town meeting. So basically, all I want to do is make sure that this thing goes to town meeting, and we'll make the pitch at that time.
Okay. Ted?
How is this different than what was proposed last year?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I'm
How is
maybe
this,
going deaf.
how is this different than what was proposed last year?
Last year was for real estate taxes themselves. And we understand that maybe that's not the right approach, so we need to utilize our town management powers and negotiate something that has been done on other parcels of land that are being occupied by other communities in our community. So this is not real estate taxes, this is payment in lieu of taxes, which can turn out to be, right now, what we're talking about is we're dedicating $6,670 every year through a letter and telling Beverly, okay, we forgive you for those taxes, go on and collect, your fees at the airport.
Have we changed our pilot payments with other municipalities that own land in yours?
Can you want to go get it, or?
Let me,
Through you, Mr. Chair?
yes, please. Town manager.
That's not how it works. So again, this is not, the state delegation is acutely aware of the issue. The city of Beverly is acutely aware of the issue. The pilots that Mr. Zuberek are referencing are baked into state law, so it requires an act of the legislature to change those. There are 3 distinct pilots within 5 miles of here, each of which are governed by a different section of statute. So, to be candid, I don't understand what this does.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Aaron?
I think I'd be okay with this, if it just said, recommend the town manager, I guess, explore, but it's recommending actual action, right?
Recommending that the town manager get further into the process, right?
Improve and expand.
Right.
Okay. Okay, he answered my question. Thanks.
Mike?
I'm trying to be a gentler, nicer person
Oh, my.
to you. Mark, you know that this does nothing. And I said this to you last year, and I will say it as nicely as I can. The folks that are in those neighborhoods have realistic problems. This does nothing to help them. It's not even a Band-Aid on an open wound. I said it last year, and I'll say it again. It gives some people false hope that somehow there is somebody working on their behalf. But it isn't even Quixotic windmills that you're dealing with on it. This is a legislative action. The town manager has met with you, I don't know, a dozen times on this issue over the course of the last couple years, at which point he, to the best of my knowledge, has explained to you that the town does support those neighbors in an effort to try to improve the situation with those neighbors, that the town does want to see the legislation that would allow us to do something there, that the town also recognizes that it may very well have made a mistake back when they decided to forego the very small, which you're not going to get any more than that in reasonable terms, but the very small amount of pilot that we gave up in order to be able to get the 2 representatives. And me personally, I would have absolutely no problem giving those 2 members up and getting a pilot program with an understanding, a realistic understanding. As you know, the state legislature is not going to pilot the, pardon the pun, the airport out of business. They are not going to set a rate on a pilot program there that they cannot afford. And so you can tell us all the numbers you want of what you think 170 acres is worth, but I will remind you again, you are not a citizen of Danvers. You are a resident of Danvers. You are a citizen of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We, as a municipal corporation, live at the complete behest of our governmental overlords, which is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And if you don't believe me, take a drive out to central Massachusetts and take a look at the Quabbin Reservoir and ask the residents of those 4 towns that no longer exist. We do the best we can to try to deal with this. This doesn't help. Doesn't help at all. What will help is trying to support the town manager in his efforts to get something accomplished.
That is the main reason of this article, is to prop up the town manager's position with the legislative
Delegation.
delegates that we have.
Is the legislation, is our representative not been doing everything that she can in an effort to try to?
She's aware of the inconsistency across the region, yes.
So I'm gonna move down the aisle here. Paul?
Well, I'm actually almost speechless because we're talking about the same thing, it seems like year after year, but we know we're not going anywhere with it. If it is, it's 170 acres, how did they get that? Just out of curiosity, it's a point of information. I'm not.
I believe it was taken through eminent domain to
It was
form the
taken
airport.
by who?
By the Commonwealth.
Well, that answered my second question.
Go ahead.
Do we have eminent
Or-
domain? Go ahead,
If I
Eric.
might, I was on the airport commission before I became selectman. I'm acutely aware of this. The United States Navy took the property that was designated as Beverly Airport, which included Wenham and Danvers, and they used it for the war effort. In 1949, they reverted that back, and they said it's going to be managed by the city of Beverly. And they led by legislation, they set a tax calculation that has not been changed since. It is only as Mr. Landau said, it can only be changed by the legislation of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts legislation. Yes, those 170 acres are physically in the Danvers border. There's some in Wenham, and there'll be discussion about the Wenham making some changes. Wenham did not make any changes to that formula. Beverly Airport bought 2 more properties at fair market value recently and charged today's tax on that. So, and the last line here asks that we provide support. After the last town meeting, the selectmen selectmen in an open vote voted 5-0 and have sent supportive language to our legislatures, to Sally Cairns and to John Lovely and to Seth Moulton, in support of opening the legislation for more taxation. I don't know that town meeting needs to support that any more than what we've already done based on last year. Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you. Arthur?
Yeah, I think I agree with Mike, except for I can say it a little bit differently. This doesn't really do anything, so I don't see any point of passing it. Is
Wally,
that pretty much what you said?
more succinct. Wally, nothing. Audience, Mr. Betancourt.
Tony Betancourt, Precinct 5, Town Meeting Member. I'm in the area that this is all going. I've been going to all those meetings there for over 20 years now, okay? Now, they keep building up over there, okay, and they keep talking it to us. They're getting a little bit better, I'm not gonna lie to you, okay? We have to keep the pressure on them, okay? The reason being is we need a quality of life, okay? There's no way they should give us no money and not take care of us, okay? Another thing, right now they're talking about putting in 2 more hangars, okay? How can they keep putting 2 more hangars and not give us any money for it? It's gonna be done on the Danvers side, okay? They could put it on the Beverly side. So we gotta smarten up here, okay? We have to. There's no other way I can explain it in any other way. This is a frustrating issue, has to be brought up because we need it done, okay? We need representation from our town to give pressure to the Beverly Airport to take care of our citizens. It's the best way I can put it.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. Committee, you've heard the discussion. Anyone else in the audience? Real quick.
Just a
Mr. Zuber.
closing comment, if I may.
Yes, sir.
As you have been told, and I agree with what's been said, the town has already engaged our state delegation in discussions about updating not only the airport pilot, but also other pilots. And we've had many discussions at the Board of Selectmen's meeting about pilot programs. They went searching for programs. None of it was ever materialized. So this is a way to identify the issue so the town meeting can understand where our residents are getting, getting hurt by it because they are being impacted with the next article that we'll be discussing in a minute.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Move no action.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No action.
Article 41, the board voted favorably 4-1.
Before you go, Mr. Zuber, we've been going for 2 hours and 10 minutes or so, and so I am loath to take a break. But if we take much longer, I don't know how much longer folks can hold on. So we can break, or we can be succinct. Which would you like?
We can wrap this thing up.
Okay.
But I think these 2 articles deserve time.
Well, absolutely. Just in the interest of.
Take a break.
Why don't we take 5 minutes bio break, folks? Stretch your legs.
Just 5.
Just 5. Okay.
Bye, Linda. Mr. Chair, pass the candy down.
Absolutely.
Get some nutrition here. Thank you.
Thank you for. Is this thing on? Thank you all for a brief break. Want to bring it back to order. I appreciate that. After the attention span after so long needs a little refresher, so maybe we can all wrap this up with great energy and great community spirit. How's that?
Oh, I don't know about that, but we'll,
After the break, it's always better.
we'll do our best.
Thank you.
How's that?
All right.
Article 41.
41.
This is a request for an environmental impact report for the Beverly Airport impact on Danvers. Beverly Airport, to see if the town meeting will vote to recommend that the airport commissioners, Danvers and Beverly, explore and perform an environmental impact study report to protect our residents and the entire region. The existing small regional airport in Beverly, Danvers, and Wenham has grown significantly. The airport emissions have increased and are having an impact on health concerns and quality of life in our residents. The residents of Danvers recommend that a formal environmental report be considered to address all contributing environmental issues and planned runway and facilities expansion. The reason for this report is that the airport itself is generating environmental impacts on our residents by leaded fuel. That's from the single-engine, multi-engine commercial jets. Master plan expansion, size of the airport considerations. Master plan lengthening of the existing runways, which has not happened yet, but it will. Planning, rezoning, conservation issues of the jurisdiction of the hangars that are being planned to be built on the west side of the airport, which is Old Burley Street. Air emissions, jet and single engines. Leaded fuel emissions, entire region were being affected, dumped from the air. Impact of hangar construction, and this is proximity to the residential area that we have on Old Burley Street. Water drainage in the neighborhoods, that has been identified, and they've even come to the Conservation Commission complaining about it. PFAS, contaminants, which is, we just talked about styrofoam. PFAS is even worse. PFAS is a contaminant of the foam that was used at the airport by the fire departments as a demonstration. And we are finding PFAS contaminants in our own wells on Route 114. Lengthening of the runway by 600 feet triggered many safety issues that are happening. Flights are going directly over our high school and our grammar schools in some cases. And the thing is that we, as the residents of Danvers, have been attending these meetings of the commission, and we are looking at no action from them because all they're concerned about is noise. And noise is a significant issue, but there are environmental issues that are showing up as well. And nobody is even thinking about doing an environmental impact study. So that's something that our residents are being impacted by, whether it's direct or indirect, The fuel is there. The hangars are located right at the backyards of our residents. And those jets are going to be stored in those hangars. And where do you think they'll rev those up before they get on the runway? Right there in our neighborhoods. That's the main reason of this. And it's a recommendation to request an environmental study. And maybe with a town meeting endorsement, that's something that can be brought to it probably go to the mayor of Beverly and to the town, the commissioners that they have for the airport. That's the whole point of this article.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before you go to the board, can I just, as a point of clarification?
Yes.
There's a lot packed into that. There's talk about hangars, there's talk about runways. Many of the items were addressed through the strategic plan that the Airport Commission conducted years ago. Just for reference, 21E, which is mentioned possibly as the solution here, is the state's Superfund law. When there is a known spill or an environmental hazard that the state has reasonable suspicion to believe is causing harm or threat, they come in and mandate certain testing be done. There's no evidence that that's happened. When the Airport Commission and its consultants came into this room 4 or 5 years ago with the state representative, the state senator, the select board, and other officials, the question was asked, would you voluntarily submit to a 21E report? And the answer unequivocally was absolutely not. That's crazy. If the state were to require one, we would absolutely go through that process. But the state doesn't require that unless there's a compelling reason to do so. And were there a reason, I believe that it would have been done already. The board voted favorably for this, but I just wanted to make that clear. Most of what is in there has nothing to do with what a traditional 21E report would focus on, which is hazardous materials after a spill. Brown Pond, some of the sites in town that were contaminated by the tanneries many, many years ago, which had evidence of chemicals show up, would have had this type of treatment. But again, to be candid, and I don't mean to cross swords with Mark, this doesn't make a lot of sense.
What else is new? The question here is...
1 second, sir. Is there another type of study other than a 21E report? Because there's a...
So I think, again, Mark alluded to the fact that the neighbors have real concerns about noise and traffic and things like that. There have been public opportunity after public opportunity for people to weigh in on the lengthening of the runways and the hangars. The leaded fuel is a real concern. That's something that's, Seth Moulton is a member of the caucus that's looking at that. There have been a number of airports that tried to ban that and have ended up in court. So the issues all get melded together, and I think, the idea that a 21E report is going to solve all those problems makes no sense. I don't know what the universe of studies and reports that could be done, but I do know that a 21E that's the state Superfund law, so, and that has a very specific use, and it's a very specific tool.
Thank you. Wally.
I'm going to let this go.
Arthur.
Can I just ask, I think my issue is the ambiguity of what we would be asking for. I don't understand, you as the town manager said, nobody's voluntarily doing a 21E. It's not going to happen. And so it just seems to be a general recommendation to go and ask them to do some kind of environmental study, and I don't know what that is. So I don't know that we're voting for anything that, if we were to vote for this, that we're voting for anything that actually is anything. So I'm sure the board, the select board, had their reasons for supporting it, but I'm not sure what we would be supporting. So I think that's my comments at this point.
Could Selectman Trask give us an idea of what they were voting for? Or what was the discussion point?
I'll speak from the seat of the minority on that vote. I voted against it. The town manager gave the select board the same information he gave to us, he gave tonight, that it's something that's already been asked and answered previously of the Beverly Airport Commission. And frankly, there's nothing in here. So the members who voted in favor, there's no actionable item here, other than to ask our representatives to ask for something, and they didn't feel, similar to you, at the end of a long night, that there was a lot of necessity for debate, given that even if passed in this manner, it doesn't do a thing other than ask the town to ask our representatives to ask the airport commission if they'll do a study. That's it. But it said possibly, that when you put words like possibly, maybe, could be into a warrant article, that's not legally binding.
Environmental studies can encompass a lot of very different things. And
yes.
So it's, I mean, I would have to be asking for something more specific if we were going to ask for something. My opinion. Sorry, Paul.
No, but that's accurate. That Mr. Scaris is feeding into the discussion that happened that night, and the discussion about hangars. When a hangar is built, it goes through and does a wetlands study, like any other construction in this town. There's no specificity here. There's no teeth or nothing to even bite onto. And I think it was also the byproduct. There's a long night and similar to what I'm hearing, no action here.
Who would the select board be asking to do? Are they asking to do the Beverly Airport to do it?
Well, as I read here.
Well, you're not going to get anywhere with that.
No. So the select board, along with the town manager, indicates to our town, the two representatives we have, one who is a town employee, one who is an independent appointed person. We could ask them to do it, but to what they can go and ask. They could do it on their own if they felt it important to represent the town.
That's about as far as it would go, though. If they said no.
And if the commission said no, the commission could say no, thank you, which they've already done previously. We have no more leverage to make them do it. This offers no more authority or leverage to do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Again, last year or 2 years ago, whenever this started, I said to you, if you want to do one of these, feel free to call me, and I will help you with the language so that the language can make some sense, so that I have at least a reasonable chance to be able to vote for it. It came about as close as you've ever come with this one. Then you add the 21E portion of it, in which you know they're not going to approve a 21E report. So why not ask for something you might get? Why not have this limited and not put the somewhat inflammatory language in it, so that you have a chance to maybe get it? And again, I want to help the people that are down there, and I do think that it would be really nice if there was some type of an environmental study that they would agree to do. It's awful that the real world is set up so that they do not have to do that we can ask all we want and they can say no. But I'd at least like to ask for something that I have a fighting chance that maybe, again, in the real world, they would potentially say yes to. And they're not going to say yes to a voluntary 21E report. No one is. So that's the way you know that. It's the way the world works. So I'll say the same thing to you again. Next year, when you're contemplating this, I'm more than happy to sit down with you and try to fabricate a warrant article that I could support and that makes sense and is clear in that. Because you know what? If you just simply had this article say, to see if the town meeting will vote to recommend that the airport commissioners explore an environmental impact study report for the premises, I'd go along with it. I'd say, go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, let the town meeting go. I don't think it has, I think they'll say no, but fine, ask. But you got to add the rest of the stuff, and I can't support it with the rest of the stuff.
Aaron.
Yeah, so I agree with Mike. if it said explore, I would totally support it, but it does go on and say perform, and that's not something I can support, you know, just out of the gate like this. And then I will say you have an attorney on the board that has offered you 2 consecutive years. Now that I'm here, I'm hearing it, and he's offering to help you, help this, write this in a way that it could move forward. And I really recommend that you take his time.
Free.
It's free. I'm
Arthur
married
said
to
it
an
was free.
attorney. It's not usually free, right?
Off
It's a
hours.
waste of our time when it comes through like this, and we want to see you be successful, and it's just not in this, written like this. So, sorry.
I appreciate your comments. However, I feel, and a lot of the residents feel the same way, is that we have been left abandoned, and the environmental impact study would be the encompassing all of the issues that are happening at that location. That location is spreading further and further into our community, and our community is being inundated with corporate jet flights now. They're coming in from the northwest over to the airport.
So no, I'm going to jump in right here. I want to hear from Ted, and then I want to hear from the audience, because I don't want to, right, other than what's here, unless we're going to have something else that's substantive, I want to really get to the question. Ted?
I don't think I'm going to have any.
Okay. So, yes, sir, Mr. Betancourt. I saw another, is that a half hand? I'm going to come back around? Okay.
It's a lazy.
There we go, thank you.
Tony Betancourt, Precinct 5, town meeting member. I know, keep going around and around. Here's the problem. What we should have done, and it should have been done exactly, what should have been done when they came in front of the select board and they asked for the expansion, we should have asked for them to do a study, okay? Environmental
But
studies,
Tony,
we should have asked
we
for.
did. They
Then why
said,
didn't they do
they
it?
said no, because they don't have to.
You could have made
The
them do it when you
the
had,
select board and
then
the-
you guys
just
refused to do the thing.
Can I just finish?
One
The
second
select
here.
board and the state representative asked them to do that, and they politely declined.
All right, you do realize that place up there is contaminated like crazy. You know that,
I don't
right?
know that.
Yeah, they have PFAS on there, okay? And look, I had a building that I sold, okay? What happens with PFAS, okay, with any environmental thing, you take more samples. The more samples you take, you dilute the thing so it passes. That's how they do it, okay? That place is contaminated up there, okay? And we got runoff coming in. All these people running into all the properties around Burley Street and stuff like that, all that water. How do we know that water doesn't have PFAS in it? How do we know we're not spraying PFAS onto our fields? We have a well. Don't we have a well at the high school? How do we don't know that. We have to make them be responsible. If they want to run a business up there, they're making money up there, okay? But the town of Danvers is not making any money. All we're doing is getting the headaches. So we have to have a mechanism in place, okay, what it's going to be, I don't know how it's going to be, to make them responsible for their property.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. Yes, sir. We'll count this as 3.
Been listening to somebody. Bill Bradstreet, town meeting member, precinct 1. First thing, when we're gonna run late like this, perhaps some refreshments would be nice. No,
Money.
more than
Costs
that.
money.
The citizen petitioner has to provide.
Sorry. We're on,
The other thing is when we talk about the airport, we don't ask, we want or demand that. It's ambiguous when you use the wrong word. We want, and we want information, plus the fact that, in my opinion, and for what it's worth, we're being held hostage here in Danvers by the FAA, is it? They tell Beverly what they want to do, and we're stuck with it. Do I think that's fair? No. I pay taxes to the federal government because I expect them to be fair with me. I know they're not, but I expect them to. But I want fairness. I want answers. That's why we want them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Thank
would
you,
like
sir.
the refreshments, though.
No more questions, Mike. I'm going to call a question. All right, thank you, Mr. Banks.
Thank you.
Thank you. 3 of 3. Any other audience? Is there a motion?
Move no action.
Is there a second?
Second.
I moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, no action, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No action. Let's bring it home, sir.
Oh, you're not gonna like this one.
We like them all.
Can I make a motion?
I'm serious. Come on, democratic process.
Not yet, not yet.
42. Can we take no action?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can we have the discussion now?
No, I think we should listen to Mr. Zubrick.
Yes. All right, so,
And he'll be, I'm sure he'll be brief.
Family time
so why don't we,
for me to do this.
why don't we,
I remove my second.
thank you.
I'm happy to talk.
Mr. Zubrick, you have
Well,
the floor.
thank you. I appreciate that because.
See how the process works? We can come around, we get there.
Well, sooner or later you will. Well, it takes you 10 years, that'll be just right then. That's where I sat in your seat. Article 42. To reverse the imposition of the so-called trash fee. This trash fee has been contemplated for the last 20 years. And the only time it became evident that it was going to come true is when the state changed the laws on Chapter 44, whatever that section is. The issues that were brought up during the conference committee that I attended 3 times were basically, you were asked to verify the need for a trash tax, basically.
Can I interject for a second? That is just categorically false. That is not the purpose of the Budget Committee. You are misrepresenting what was discussed over 3
I
two-hour
am
meetings,
speaking
Mr.
at this
Zubarik.
time-
But you're speaking falsehoods into the public record.
I am speaking from what I know.
With all due
what's
respect.
going on, yes.
All right,
thank you.
let's,
The reason for this tax, trash tax, is to compensate for the increase in the contract for the rubbish removal and disposal. The rubbish and disposal costs have always been under the tax revenue portion of our budget. This last year, we've had $12.2 million of free cash that's been made available. We had excess funds available for other purposes. The thing is that this is a tax without representation. It never went to town meeting. The town meeting has never had an opportunity to debate it or approve it because at the time when we were discussing it, it was all preempted by the article of state law that said the town manager can impose it without.
Not the town manager, Mr. Zubarik, and you know
Mr. Town
that.
Manager, I'm going to give you a moment when he's done to clean up anything.
I can't keep track, though. I'm sorry.
Well, the thing is that the town meeting is the legislative body for taxation or fees. Every fee that we go in to increase, such as the building inspector's fees, the meals tax, we increase. We go to town meeting and the town meeting approves it or disapproves it. So this is no different, and all I'm asking, and all we're asking for, is let the town meeting determine how much we're gonna be taxed, instead of identifying this as a fee, and it is a tax to me and to the residents of Danvers.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Town Manager?
I'm going to be very brief because we've discussed this for probably 12 hours over the course of the last year. Number one, the Select Board voted to adopt this fee. That is pursuant to Chapter 44, subsection 28CF of the state law. I'm not sure what year that was enacted. Mr. Zubarek referenced 20 years of contemplating this fee. I have no clue where that comes from. He could perhaps enlighten us. But this discussion came out of the budget process last year when our trash costs went up by 60% year over year. And the boards and committees that legislate this town, the school committee, the select board, the finance committee, and the library trustees met 3 times. Mr. Zubarek was there. They discussed a dozen different options for generating new revenue. They also discussed making service reductions. People believe in magical math, that we can suddenly cut $1.5 million out of the budget without impacting people or services. The leaders of this town debated for a year and determined that reducing services was inappropriate in their view, and they determined that the trash fee, especially given that our costs had just gone up by 60%, was an appropriate mechanism. State law authorizes the select board and the town manager as the executive function of this community with that authority. The majority of fees, Mr. Zubarek, are outside of town meeting's control. There are some that are written into our bylaws, and those are fees that are adjusted by town meeting. We have dozens of fees that are not subject to town meeting vote, and the fee in question, which you're calling an illegal tax, sir, is spelled out in state law, and everything that was conducted last year to put that fee in place was legal. What you are proposing is inconsistent with the law. And I don't feel any need to discuss this further because we have exhausted hours and hours and hours of time on this.
Thank you for that clarification. And now I will call for a motion if there is such.
Well, before
Hold on
we
one second,
do
sir.
that,
Hold on one
have
second, sir.
a response.
I don't, sir,
to the
sir,
town manager.
sir, let me do this. I know this is my first time, but it's not my first rodeo. I want to call for a motion because we've had lots of debate and discussion on this. We don't need a back and forth. So if it's the,
Point of information, sir.
yes, sir.
We have not been asked if there was any questions in the audience.
And you really think we have new questions at this time?
I would just like to be asked, sir.
Would you like to be asked?
Yep, I think it's protocol.
If the committee is okay, I will take audience questions. No, that means I'm skipping them, sir. That's the point.
I would
And-
like, I'd like to.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, so this is my second time on this. You're basically saying that what we did wasn't accurate, it wasn't in the right process, it wasn't in the right form, that all of my volunteer time is a waste of time, it was done incorrectly, that my time taken away from my family was useless. You're wasting all of our time here by coming back with the same nonsense you had last year. I couldn't believe last year how this guy was talking at first, because he's a good friend of mine. I was like, what in the heck's going on? Waste of time, like an absolute waste of my time, and I don't appreciate it, and it's not necessary. I'm not happy about this.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm just, I mean, the law is the law is the law, and the law is that the Board of Selectmen makes the decision. So, town meeting does not have any authority to make this decision. It's the select board, and the decision was made, and only a select board can undo that decision. So, I mean, it's that simple.
And we passed this last year. I mean, we rejected it last year, so.
Honestly, like, if we do go to charter review, one of the things I'm gonna request is we increase the number of signatures required for citizens petition. Because you put on a master class in wasting our time. And you put on a master class in piling in mistruths and tropes and dressing it up as legislation. It's garbage.
Dirt on the lawn.
And so now,
There are a lot of things.
and
There are a lot of things that the select board has the authority to do, that under no circumstances is it responsible to believe that town meeting has some super executive authority over it. That's the way the system of government works. And that's how our system works. If you and I know that, this is the problem, no, Mark, this is the problem I have. You know better because you've been at it. It's disingenuous what you do with this. The reality is the same as if the select board made a decision to euthanize a dog, because that's in the authority of the select board under statute. I guarantee you, if they made that decision, there is going to be a family that is very, very disappointed about that. That does not mean that our system of government allows 10 citizens to bring it to the town meeting, and the town meeting has the ability to negate the decision that the select board made. This is how government works. There's a separation. I don't understand, after being told this is the legality of it, why you would come back with something that is even less legal in regards to it. There was at least a colorable argument that you had with the last year's one. There is no colorable argument with this. And I move that no action on this at this point right now, that we suspend debate and move no action.
Second.
We just went through this. I am going to take questions from the floor since we went down this path, but I will be very short with folks because I'm not going to go around in circles with it. I see one hand from Mr. Betancourt. Are there any other hands? Let me acknowledge any additional hands on this topic. So with all due respect to the topic, I see one hand. Mr. Betancourt has the floor. After Mr. Betancourt, we will entertain a motion and we will conclude this discussion. Mr. Betancourt.
Very simple. The only thing is we got to take into consideration what's going on in this town, okay? Everybody's feeling it, okay? I mean, I feel bad. I've got apartments I got to rent out, and I got to charge more money for them, okay, and stuff like that. But a lot of people are getting priced out of this town. A matter of fact, the apartment I just left, the guy was here 65 years. He just moved to New Hampshire, okay, with his whole family, okay? I mean, his father was here. Everybody was here. That's what I'm trying to tell you. We have to take a look at what's going on here. I guess what we have to do is the town has to figure out a way to make more money so we can have a break in this town. So we don't have to start charging all these fees. Every time we turn around, it's a new fee. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm retired, okay? I'm lucky that I have some property, so I got some extra income coming in. But I can't take a $600 hit every year, okay? Basically, that's what it's a $600 hit in taxes and $200 in trash. It's $800. I don't know a lot of people that can handle that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt.
Move no action.
Move no action and seconded. Again, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you all very much. Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Move to suspend to Wednesday night.
We will reconvene on Wednesday night. Thank you all. There's a